Boomcaster for fire engineering,
Boomcaster.
which
What
I
about
do
for
not
roasting?
like. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, cool. Well, we
And
can.
what camera is he using? He's like glowing over there, bro. I need
Yeah,
that for my
Yeah, he's
fro. I
got
need my fro to
got
be
some
looking that
professional
good.
he's
professional
got
lighting.
makeup artist
I've
and
got this is my
everything. I
light. I'm
mean,
sure Eddie's got this professional light.
I got to do
It
better.
makes all the difference. Yeah, camera takes off
Yeah.
15 pounds and redoes the hair and makes you look good.
Does it work in bars?
yeah, I was
Are we
gonna say
live?
because I obviously need a little work with the camera. So
Yeah. And yes, we are officially live. Happy
Oh,
Tech Talk Tuesday. We
take
got
off
we got a
the
star-studded crew, as you can tell, the vibe that we're going to be diving into today. I'm excited, diving into how to buy fire tech the right way. Two very close friends of ours. We got Eddie B and Robbie E. Kind of going to our homies here, and as well as love from our hosts, Will Brocious and Scott Roseberry. We've got a lot of people who have kind of acknowledged us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. If you got questions, this is the right time to ask them. I'll be monitoring them and bring it to the chat. And as you know, this is a free floating, fun conversation. Tech Talk Tuesday, again, first and third Tuesday of every month. And TSI is already coming up pretty soon. And if you got interest in joining the Tech Council, please reach out to Will, Scott, or myself. We got a lot of cool opportunities and ideas that we're pulling together for workshops at TSI. I should know the exact dates, but I'm pretty sure December 6th, 7th, and 8th in Denver. So make sure that's on your radar. So without further ado, I'm going to set it to you, Scott and Will. I'll be here active third sous chef monitoring. And, thanks all for being here.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, March 17th. I've got some lighting envy issue going on with Eddie right there. He's got the perfect lighting. The rest of us, not so much. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe bad lighting could be a good thing, huh, Will?
I need all the help I can get, man. So
just gonna say.
Hey, so man, today's conversation, it really came from some conversations that I've had lately. And Nearest, Nearest has been a great system, but Nearest has caused some frustrations with some of the different companies that are using it. And I've heard lots of people wanting to jump ship off their RMS systems. So that's kind of was the impetus of today's show is if you're having frustrations or you think you need a new system, if you don't do it right, you're going to end up back in the same position you're already in. And so we want to talk about how to do it right. And I think this conversation today can apply to pretty much any type of technology you're wanting to look at implementing. So we're going to cover it from man, fire chief is not happy with what his system is, all the way through implementation and adoption, and we're going to cover a lot of stuff today. So hopefully, you're calling your friends, tell them to jump on the show and watch what's going on. But Will, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself.
Yep. Will Brocious, Deputy Chief, Charlottesville Fire Department here in Virginia. Great topic today. I was just at the Center for Public Safety Excellence, no longer allowed to say CPSE. It's a CPSE conference last week, and Nearest was definitely a hot topic amongst the RMS. And as a Nearest advisor, we want to take this time to remind folks that 9 times out of 10, if Nearest is not working with your RMS, it's probably set up incorrectly on your end. Do not blame Nearest. Get with your RMS and work that out. Also, Scott, I think we started Tech Talk Tuesday, and I kind of got involved with you all based off the same discussion. I think you were telling a story. You knew someone who bought some software, and some things happened, and ended up getting them jammed up at work. And so this is a topic I'm very passionate about. When you buy software, do it the right way,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to the RMS. So glad to have our two friends here. What'd you call them, Kevin? Robbie E and Eddie B. I
Eddie
guess
B
I'm
and Robbie E. That's right.
yeah. Scotty R. Is
Hey,
that a thing? We'll go with that.
that kind of goes here with Eddie E. Look at this web page I found. That's
oh
Eddie.
boy,
Look at that guy.
Yeah.
Always a good one.
Man, he's got his own web page. You want to check out his bio? Man, look at this bio. Goes
He
on
don't
and
need
on.
lights. He's just pretty on just naturally. He don't need
Yeah.
special lighting to do that.
those are much younger pictures too. It looks like.
Yeah, catfishing out here, are you? So yeah, great topic. So I think Rob, you and I, did we do a presentation on this? Was it last TSI or one before we hosted
Yeah,
something about this topic?
yeah, we did. We had a conversation about it. It's one that's very near and dear to my heart,
Yeah.
and it's a thing that it's the tech world is moving so quickly in so many areas and aspects of the things that we do, and the reality is the in our industry we're not really good at doing this well, and it's easy to get off track. It's easy to buy something based on feature functionality and benefits and not think about some of the other things that have to go into it and do proper needs assessment as process, and especially in our space. And unfortunately, it gets missed a lot for a lot of good, bad, and different reasons. So super excited to talk through it today. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. I do a lot of needs assessments and technology strategic planning for agencies and helping them buy stuff right, not buy things they shouldn't, align the things that they are buying, make sure they're working together, behaving together, doing the things
That's
that they
right.
should be doing, holding vendors accountable, and making sure that we're delivering the value that the industry needs.
Yeah. So, question for Freddie. I'm going to tell like a 20-second story. So, let's just say somebody on this show recently got a call from the IT director and said, "Hey, I heard you all were talking to this software, and I want to remind you of this city policy. Mm. Do not talk about software or talk to software vendors until you speak to IT." And then that same person probably had to do that again this week. What's some advice there? What are the standard practices when it comes to doing software? I know in my agency, it's IT first before anything else. What have you seen throughout your experience, Eddie? Where's the first stop?
Well, I can first off relate to the frustration. Like, I used to get pretty frustrated with our IT department because you kind of feel like they're not really seeing it from your perspective. But in the same breath, I always love Joe Powers. He talks about the donuts, right?
Oh
The
God.
first, the first thing you do when you want to do something like that is you need to go talk to your internal stakeholders. In this case, which driven by policy would be IT department.
Mhm.
And if you feel like they don't understand what you're doing and what your needs are, that's on you. You need to go fix that. You build those relationships in advance so that they are briefed up and understand where you're trying to go, and let them be your partner. One of my go-to people, aside from the IT department, was my procurement guy. Right. So usually when I was going to do, you have two people in your corner. You got your IT department to make sure they're there to back you up, that whatever you might purchase would do all the things it needs to do within their security framework and within their ecosystem of how they operate. And then also having that procurement guy there to make sure you get through the process correctly without tripping on anything. I would just go, man, this is what I want to do. Tell me, how do I get there? And, let them guide you through that process. That instead of treating them as adversaries, treat them as allies and get them on board as early as you can.
And Eddie, would you say it's fair frustration on their end? And so I put myself in their shoes, right? So you're an IT director for a municipality. I've got police, fire, public works, sewer, everybody buying
Mhm.
software without telling me. And then guess who gets the call when it doesn't work?
Right.
Right?
You have to support it. You have to give it an infrastructure to let it run. I mean, that's I can see where they would be, frustrated and upset about that. Of course they would be.
Well,
Absolutely.
and I think too, in their defense, I mean, we have to remember our cities are being attacked 24/7.
Yeah.
And so their primary responsibility is protecting the city from ransomware. So yeah, they've got to look at everything from a different lens.
It's all out of love is what I'm learning, Scott, is that, they want the same thing we do. We want to succeed, we want to have good product, and we want to do it in a responsible way. And sometimes we just outrun our legs a little bit and we just got to slow down. And sometimes what I've also learned for anybody watching is you may know that as a deputy chief or a chief, but if you've got people working on projects below you, you've got to make sure that message is communicated down because you still get that same phone call that your people are, moving a little bit fast. So definitely got to involve everybody at the very beginning. If not, you get to call Rob and say, "Uh-oh, help."
That's a call I get quite a bit, and it's one of the reasons that when we started TSI years ago, we wanted people to not just show up to another fire conference. We want you to show up and bring your IT people to things like TSI. We want you to bring these individuals who have to help you evaluate technology and not do it in a bubble. And it's critical because I do get the phone call. a lot after the fact and go, I've got all this stuff. I don't know what to do with it. I can't make it work. How do I integrate this stuff? How do I deal with a vendor? How do I figure out how to get myself out of a contract with a vendor? And it's like, well, did we evaluate and do the steps up front to make sure that what we're buying was bought right with the right tooling? Or are we just sort of, showing up and go, look, diamond plate, cool. I want that. I want that. I mean, I love fire chiefs. I've been at this in the fire service for a decade and in public safety for almost 30 years. And my fire people are my favorite human beings on earth. But fire chiefs are the worst shiny lure buyers in the world. So it's got to be a team sport for sure.
Rob made a good point. If you are jammed up like you guys were talking about, you're pinched up on an RMS or whatever vendor it is that you're working with. It's going to be your IT department that's going to help you find some wiggle room there if you need to make a change. So, it's an ongoing relationship. It's not just every time you think you want to buy something. It's something that you maintain over time. Get together, set a recurring meeting every month or every other month or something to go hang out with those folks and keep them in the loop.
So I think we can all agree. Step one is relationships.
Yeah.
Build those
100%.
relationships long before you ever get into the situation where you're looking for something new. Step two is use those relationships to make sure what you have isn't already is actually broken. Make sure it's not broken. Like work with your IT department. I would say too that I know a lot of departments aren't utilizing what they have to its full extent, and I think that's so. So I would say reach out to the current company and find out what's possible, what's not possible. So I think that would be the first couple steps in you want a new RMS system. You're tired of what it is. Build those relationships. Make sure that what you're wanting is not broken, or what you have isn't.
Scott, man, you nailed it talking about those relationships. And Eddie said something a little earlier about Joe Powers and coffee and donuts. Joe hasn't worked at Charlottesville Fire in close to 5 years or whatever it's been. I still get asked about that. I go to a meeting like, "Oh, you guys aren't bringing coffee and donuts? Where's the other guy?" So that's just how powerful an impression it really makes, and it's just about people feeling valued in their space. Is, hey, I need help. Yes, the department needs help, but I'm asking you as a person, right? And hell, who don't like a little coffee and donuts from time to time? So it really does work. It's powerful.
Okay, so let's move on now. So step one, let's say we've established those relationships. We did the coffee and donuts months ago. Step two, we've reached out to IT department and the current software company, and it's just not working for us. What's step three? What's the next step for a fire chief?
So step three is an internal a needs assessment. It's really identifying, and a needs assessment is not, I need my software to have blue buttons here. It's not feature function benefits. Got nothing to do with any of that. The needs assessment falls into three really critical buckets that you've got to step into. If you fail on any one of these, you'll end up where I'm working on a couple of projects right now for some departments that aren't even sure what's in their own tech stack, much less who champions it internally, much less are we using it, are we getting value from it, and that kind of stuff. So if you're going to start with a needs assessment, there's three different buckets that it has to fall in. You have to start with a technology needs assessment. There's a tech needs assessment. There's a plug into IT systems. There's a interoperability with other systems. There is a feature function benefit thought process to how the tech in and of itself is actually going to function, nearest requirements, qualifications. Then there's an operational needs assessment that needs to happen, and that's getting on the floor. That's working with a group of people that you've created within your organization, a technology advisory group. Like my friend Chief Muncie's got deployed through the planning division at San Bernardino County. And it's meeting with that technology advisory group and understanding what the real needs are, what are the frustrations, and really getting to brass tacks for a couple of different reasons. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Making sure that it is in fact actually broke and not either operator error or, we are famous in the fire service. Firefighters will find a way without question. There may be an extra hole in the wall when it's done, but it'll get done every time. So the reality is, I mean, they'll find a way around, through, backwards, or anything to get a job done. So do we have an operational needs assessment completed? Then we really understand what we're trying to accomplish. And part of that is really making sure that it aligns to your technology strategic plan, which should align to the organization's strategic plan. If you don't have those two things done, then you shouldn't be looking to buy tech. You need to be creating a technology strategic plan from the ground up that you can then align all technology and readiness. Everything then from a readiness assessment falls through that. The third bucket is an implementation assessment. You do that before you start buying software. You start looking at your organization, starting understanding top to bottom. Can we actually implement software? Do we have something in the training protocols associated with this? Do we have buy-in from the floor? If you hand a login to someone for a new system, especially somebody on the floor, especially something like RMS that's going to get used literally every day, if you hand them that login after you've bought it and everything else, and it's the first time they're seeing it, when you expect them to use it, you really screwed up. You need to have that done early in phase so that you can understand what your capabilities are to actually even implement the technology you're considering buying. Have a plan, have people on board, have a champion, have internal resources ready to go so that they can not only help you review pieces of the procurement stuff, which we'll get to later, that have to do with implementation and training, make sure it fits within the buckets that you've got done, but then making sure the organization is actually ready for change, because change management, I always equate change management to pissing people off at a rate they can absorb. Uh, and so the reality is you can empower them to increase the rate at which they can absorb certain things by involving them early in the process. So a three-step process for needs assessment: technology needs assessment, what does it actually need to behave and do? An operational needs assessment, which aligns everything from the technology strategic plan to what the floor actually needs the doggone thing to do every day. And then an implementation needs assessment. Those three things have got to happen before you start talking to anybody or anything.
Yeah, Rob, I think you forget that you charge money for this, man. Don't give all the sauce away. Go ahead, Scott.
I love if you notice, like Will and I
Just
are closer to the screen, like we're in person listening to you. We're really that into
I almost started taking notes and I was like, it's recorded. I could just watch it again.
and we have our first soundbite.
Correct.
Time that one was.
Rob, one question to Eddie as well, but when you're kind of in that zone, and Will, you mentioned it too, about sometimes it's buying the tech and maybe you kind of just buy it because you think it's a good idea. And if you've kind of just been in this routine of this is the way we buy it, and maybe you have an early newcomer or something like an early adopter that maybe buys something they shouldn't. But I find this is actually one advantage that I've found with sometimes using AI, where I kind of ask AI, like, what am I missing? Help me see the things I'm not seeing. And I think that's kind of a hard thing for anyone to acknowledge, that they don't know everything and that they actually are missing stuff. But what would you tell fire departments, or how do you tell people, like, to kind of take a step back? And maybe this is a larger kind of strategic audit conversation, but how do you help people see stuff that they're maybe just blind to in this whole kind of starting to think about purchasing new tech process?
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well,
I think
all right. Go ahead, Rob.
Eddie, you go. You go, Eddie.
Okay.
Go.
All right. All right. Now I've forgotten what I was going to say. I think one thing, I think it's an interesting perspective. In the corporate world, I've discovered they have what they call a CTO most of the time. They have a chief technology officer who oversees these things that Rob has explained to us. In the fire service, you usually have a second, third level chief who, has this and about 100 other things to do. And, there's no way you could know everything, right? So the first thing is, I always go to the policy, the procedure, and the practice, and kind of put in a very layman's term on what Rob is explaining, right? To understand what needs have to be met? What is this thing trying to do? What policies and procedures surround it that it needs to fit into our world? And what are people actually doing? The thing when Rob was describing that came to mind was apparatus purchases. One of the smart things we did back in the day was we had an apparatus group that was all operational, and they were the ones that really spec'd out how our apparatus would be designed. And things like we wanted to be able to do most of the things while standing on the ground without having to climb. Little ergonomic, little details like that, right? You could do the same thing with software. I want to have that field perspective of what I want this to do. I want to know what compliance I have to have, what reporting requirements are there. There's just so much. Uh, I like I like what Kevin said about dump it in the AI and tell me what I'm missing. I do that 10 times a day. On various things of help me get a handle on this, or reach out to somebody like Rob that can guide you through the process, that has that experience. Lean on your peers. I think if you just run off and buy stuff without understanding the downrange implications, you're going to have a lot of frustration. You're going to waste a lot of time. You're going to spend a lot of money you didn't need to spend. And you could probably have people above you in the chain of command looking at you with that raised eyebrow too. So, uh, slow down, understand the full scope of what's going on. We've been hearing a lot about reporting compliance. That's the hot button right now because everybody's there's these backlogs that are happening that are going to be a problem. So, I think I can't think of anything more profound than slow down and understand the full scope of the project.
Yeah, it's that I'm going to echo that 100%. I mean, if you haven't sat down, and we kind of talked about it a few minutes ago, if you haven't sat down and done a complete tech stack review on what's already in the department and why, and align that to your strategic plan, you got no business trying to buy software or anything else, frankly, if you haven't gone through that process and understand what you've already got, what's getting used and what's not, and why you're trying to buy things. You have a 5 year, a 3 to 5 year technology strategic plan that aligns those things. That allows you to also create something where this animal that we're talking about today, which feels really big and painful because it can be, and replacing CAD and RMS are two of the most painful things that we deal with in the fire service today. If we don't understand our needs and requirements ahead of time and what we've actually got and what we're trying to accomplish and align it to our strategic goals, you're just going to take something that's even more complicated and make it worse. I mean, it's like pouring gas on fire. Literally, you're just going to make it worse. So aligning those things and making sure that you understand what you've got, where you're going, and why you're trying to go there will help you clearly identify and make decisions. And the other thing that it does as a sort of ancillary side benefit, that keeps you from spending a whole bunch of money with people like me, is it helps you create a process to review technology that you should go through, not only a tech stack review on an annual basis, but it creates a process for you to go through where you can pick, hey, we're going to evaluate 3 to 4 technologies per year. It's new leading edge tech. It's stuff we have to replace that's legacy, whatever it is. It puts a mechanism in place for you to do that on a regular basis so that this starts to become more like an operational procedure. It's kind of like drilling. It's like throwing ladders, man. I mean, we throw ladders for a living and for a reason, and there's a way we do it. You do that with your tech purchases and things like that as well. And it creates a process that becomes a repeatable thing and makes this a whole lot easier long term.
God, I'd like that the point was brought up. I did write this one down because like it's good for right now, right? It's buying software like specking out a truck. And I'm thinking, so we're going through the process of trying to, determine what ladder truck we're going to buy, what brand. And I'm just thinking of how absurd it would be if we went to, a show, walked the halls, looked at one truck and was like, that's it, bing, and we're going to live with it, right?
Yeah.
And we do that sometimes with software, right? You walk through the vendor halls, you don't ask
All the
questions,
time.
it's like it catches your eyes, and then you're like, I have to have this without taking all those steps. And man, the amount of pain it can cause, just like buying the wrong fire truck, is you got to live with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the worst things we can do is rush to buy technology because either we have a deadline or we get those windows of opportunity. You have some sort of event happen. So you get this window of opportunity to buy something. But I think tech is the wrong thing to buy when you have that deadline because of all, like so far, what we've talked about, what needs to be done. You'll buy the wrong thing and it's going to cost you more money and more headache in the long run.
And probably burn some bridges with like what we talked about, building those relationships, right? And sometimes you get one crack at it. And so you get that
Yeah.
reputation for buying the wrong stuff, with procurement and legal and IT, and now you're labeled, right? Now everything you go
Or
to
the
try to buy,
floor.
it's gotten 10 times harder because, oh, here comes Will again, and then one of his crazy
Yeah.
ideas, and there's not enough coffees and donuts to get you out of that.
Yeah.
Looks like we got a question there, Scott. How's
Yeah,
the
I just turned my chat on. I forgot. I was like, we're supposed to be looking for questions.
bro? You look so much different. Well, I think you got to bring the shades back, man. It just kind of gave you a little bit more
Well,
edge.
I've got readers. I can bring
No, no,
pictures.
no. I'm talking about the
Oh,
the biker glasses, bro. Just kind
The
of give you
Oakley
a little
brand.
yeah, no thanks.
edge. You got this one question?
What does a tech stack review process look like, and where do you start?
Not it.
Yeah, well, I do them for a living. The very first thing that you need to start with is an inventory. Yeah, you need to look top to bottom, and by organization, at all the things that you've got. It's not uncommon, even in smaller organizations, but certainly once you get to a mid-size or a large department, for individual divisions with individual budgets to start buying things and realize that you've got two or three things, sometimes from the same vendor, that aren't plugged in, that all do the same thing. So understanding what you've got today with a complete inventory, top to bottom, of what you've already got, then the next step beyond understanding what you've got really is who's championing it and are we using it? Those are the most important things, because that'll allow you to bucket technology, or really anything, into three simple understandings of what you should be doing it with it. One, we use this thing every day. It's great. We got to make sure, it stays where it's at. Two, maybe we need to sit down and evaluate if we're using it. We need to sit down and have a conversation with a vendor. Are you innovating? Are you doing the things we need to do? Or do we really need this tech, and look at it? Or an outright, yeah, that's not working. Nobody uses it. It's old. It's legacy. Nobody's innovating. Throw it out the window. Replace whatever the concept is for it. So those are the first things with a tech stack review that you've got to really understand. You got to get in and understand what's there, do a complete inventory of it. And then again, it's kind of like there's a lot of this stuff that becomes a repeatable process. It's painful and it hurts to have to do it the first time. But once you integrate, it's kind of like accreditation. We're just talking about
Mhm.
CPSE and whatnot. You integrate it into the culture of the organization and how we do business. This is how we're going to operate from a technology perspective across the organization. We work with IT. They're not the technology, prevention department. We work with our procurement organization, because they're not the procurement prevention department. We understand what we have and we make it a process internally. Once it's done and you kind of get over the initial pain of the hump, man, it's a whole lot easier to just keep it going long term.
I like that, if you find that champion in your department for it too, because I think what a lot of departments run into is you have that champion, but just by the nature of the fire service, that champion is going to promote or move on somewhere in 2 years. So who's going to fill in that spot once they're gone? Because they were the ones that championed it. They knew everything about it. They had ownership of that technology. They helped implement it, and now they moved on. And the next person, lots, frankly, sometimes they just don't care about tech at all. And like Eddie was saying earlier, they got five other jobs and they were handed this and they don't care about it. So then I think that's another thing that I've seen tech just sit on the shelf. They're spent a lot of money from, because that champion is gone and we didn't replace them with the right champion.
Yeah, and I'm gonna shout out Eddie. I've heard since moving to Virginia. Of course, I've always known you through the vendor network, but since moving to Virginia, man, your reputation just is so
You
massively
saw his website.
positive.
He's got
I'm man, I'm
That's for drumming. That's a different thing.
Scott. That's a different reputation. But give me your feedback on your experience on this. So while at CPSC, we saw Charlotte Fire Department, and they're doing something where they're getting these young firefighters involved in that accreditation and planning side. So
Hmm.
we're trying to do the same thing here. We just did our strategic plan involving the firefighters and bringing them up. What's some advice on that when building that long range planning for your department, whether it's technology, et cetera? I mean, it's all moving puzzle pieces around. What do you think about that, Eddie?
I think a lot of it has to do with passion and talent, right? So we tend to think of the fire service and it is a hierarchical, paramilitary type of organization.
That's another one.
But if you look at passion and talent, if I have a challenge, a situation, a problem, whatever it is, task that's on my desk, you have a fairly good sized group of people where is the passion on that topic and the talent on that topic? And how can I'm going to reach across ranks, I'm going to reach across battalions, I'm going to reach across shifts and get those people with those traits attached to that problem. You know, you're kind of more of a talent scout than you are, a manager, so to speak. I think that's one of the little nuggets that I found over the years was don't worry about the chain of command. Don't worry about where they're assigned. Who's good at it, who cares about it, and how can I get them associated with that? And that helps them if they're young firefighter coming up through the chain of command. Nothing's better in an assessment center than talking about the projects you worked on, right? Then that gives you something to talk about in those situations. So it's a win-win for everybody to look at it in that perspective. Sometimes, traditionalist type folks might be a little bit like, well, what are you doing talking to him? You should go through the chain. I'm like, well, the chain is there when we're handing out orders at structure fires. It's not necessarily when we're doing business, So it's understanding when and when not to go hardcore formal like that. But
Yeah.
I mean, the fire department has so much talent in it. Any fire department I've ever seen. I mean, there's all kinds of really, incredible creativity, ingenuity. That's what they do. That's what we do on the street, So if you can leverage that on a administrative problem, gold.
Yeah, I think you're right. We put too much emphasis on rank meaning ability and not ability meaning ability. And that's where you run into that champion problem because we gave that to a rank and now that person's gone, but we can only give that to that rank with that because that rank means ability and that's not right. Like especially nowadays with all these young kids we're hiring that grew up with an iPhone in their hand that are now entering the fire service. Those are the ones that we need to tap for getting into this or helping champion technology. So a reminder to everybody watching, send in your questions. Now's the time to ask when we got the two experts on the line with us. But so we've identified step number 1 is relationships. Step number 2 was, I can't even read my own writing. Step 1 was, what was step 2, Will? I thought you said you were writing it down.
Man, look, I'm writing down these little nuggets for Will. Buying software, like specking out a truck, passion and talent. I wasn't writing it down. I thought you had the procedural steps.
Step 3. Well, step
Just go to
3
3. Just go to 3.
You need a consultant clearly to keep track of this stuff. So needs
step 2
analysis.
Step 1 is relationship. Step 2 is it broken? Step 3 is the needs analysis. So we've identified what we need and what we're looking for, and we've identified the future technology, and we've done that, the stack lineup, the tech stack. So what is the next step?
Well, usually you got to figure out, you've decided you're going to buy something, you got to go through the procurement process, right?
Okay.
Which is, painful. And something to remember is that it's super painful for a couple of different reasons, but it's not just painful for you. It's painful for your vendors. So working in conjunction with your vendors as you start the procurement process, as you understand some of the things that will help you and them do a better job serving you, like writing specs, right? A lot of organizations, they finally end up, yep, I got to go buy an RMS. Okay, pick up the phone, call procurement. I got to go buy an RMS. Well, the guy on the other end of the phone is still trying to figure out what you mean by RMS. And then he's going to go write specifications that are so off the wall that I mean, it may or may not meet some of your specific requirements. It may be really poorly written and completely gray, so you can't pick a vendor. It may be so detailed that no vendor on the face of the earth could ever even hope to actually do what you're asking it to do. So that's at the early stage of procurement when you're ready to do it. Man, again, to the relationships, your procurement person should be in that room. They should have an understanding of what this thing is that you're trying to do. And you should, I mean, all this stuff's public record, right? Every agency has bought an RMS. Most agencies have bought RMSs. I mean, a lot of them have bought them in the last few years. Reach out to those agencies, get copies of RFPs, get copies of specs, and talk to them about what went well and what didn't from that specification process. So in the early stages, you're able to actually identify, not just the shiny lure and feature function benefit, or you avoid, getting RFP copies from actual vendors. You get stuff that was used by people who have been in the industry, seen it, and other agencies. and work through that process with them to make sure that you're speccing it the right way, right? Just like you'd spec a fire truck. You gotta spec for what you're actually trying to need and not for a feature function benefit. Your specification, the first filter for your specification has to be outcomes. It has to be the outcomes. You never buy software because it does this, that, or the other thing. Is because your department's trying to achieve these 10 things. How does your software help us achieve these 10 things with these feature function benefit things that we need to do, combined with compliance and policy, nearest integration for RMS, things like that are checkboxes that you have to do. How do they all align and make sure they align with the strategic plan and align to what you're actually trying to buy?
So to his point, Scott, and those relationships, and I'm gonna shout out Eddie's company. He's got the brand on his chest now, right? There you go. And so very recently we're first due customers. But we're trying to do some things with the contract, and we've got some folks at legal who are new. I'm new to this contract, and this is how important relationships are. I was able to make 2 phone calls, and we got everybody in one room, and we were able to fix every issue we had. We turned the mic off. We let the lawyers talk their lawyer stuff. We talk at everybody's level, and we got the solution fixed. And so when it comes to those relationships, it also matters down to the vendor level. Build those relationships at that vendor level of folks that you can trust. They're going to do the right thing. So always, throwing a shout out to the folks at First Do and all the other RMS companies. I haven't had a bad experience with many of them. Everybody's wants to help and help push the mission of the fire service forward. What do you think, Eddie?
I think, that's one of the things I look for, particularly in the sales reps. If it won't do it, like, don't upsell me. You know what I mean? Tell me if it won't do it, tell me it won't do it. Don't give me I'd rather have the honest opinion rather than trying to always pitch the new thing. You know what I mean? And then also making sure that pitch is in context of your operation, I think, is an important piece of that. Explaining to somebody how FDNY, also a client, how they operate. I got you see that shot right there.
Yeah, you look.
They're a client, but they operate completely different than Charlottesville does, right?
Yeah.
It's a completely different thing. So not one size doesn't fit all. So you have to be able to tailor the thing to the local need of whatever it is the problems they're trying to solve. Rather than we go to them rather than them come to us. You know what I mean? I guess is the way to put it.
Several years ago, we were looking at a software company that we do now have. And I remember in the sales pitch, they were showing us one of their features. And I asked him, are you able to reconfigure it? Because that's not how we do it here. And his answer, I quote, was, "We don't have a department yet. We haven't been able to reconfigure to meet their needs." That is exactly what he said. And so I say he lied to me. My partner, who's he retired a few years ago, he says he didn't lie to me because it turns out they didn't have anybody using it at the time. It was in beta. So he says they didn't lie. I say it's a flat out lie. But I mean, we bought a hook, line, sinker, and it never did work. And so it's, how do you avoid that? How do you, I didn't know as much back then. It was like several years ago before I really kind of got to where we are now with these shows like this. But how do you avoid that from happening?
Proofs, man. It's all about the proofs.
Yep.
That's what we all do. We all been on the job. We do the same thing. If you're going to do something like that, the first thing I usually do is call my buddies and ask them what they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. Call around, ask your friends, what are y'all using? What are you using? What are you using? And that's something I hear a lot before and after the uniform was, give me 3 like me.
Yeah.
Right. And there should be some examples of those proofs of where this thing is working. Well, I mean, that dude, he threw a heck of a curveball, right? So
yeah, and I think that goes into what we said earlier. Don't rush to buy technology, because we were also under a deadline, so we were rushed to buy it.
Yeah.
And so don't rush to buy it. It'll cost you more money in the long run. And then just the headaches and man hours and just everything for a broken system.
Just see the next question, Scott. It's
you want to get it?
Yeah, I do, because I know I want to. I hate these 3 letters. So it says, what is the most common hidden cost or overlooked hurdle during the implementation phase that departments usually miss until the contract is signed? I'm not going to cuss because I'm in uniform, but what is an API and why is it so expensive?
Yeah.
Like I wish I owned an API. What is an API? Does anybody know on this thing? Because that to me has been the most expensive thing.
It stands for an application programming interface.
Yeah, those are expensive, by the
And
way.
and our industry has made billions of dollars on APIs. And primarily because we in the fire service have allowed it to happen.
Mm.
We haven't in the procurement process and in our processes of going out and buying these things, we have not focused on the things that really actually critically matter, being first being data ownership, second being interoperability, and the third being a streamlined future procurement process. If we don't focus on those things, then we end up with technology that doesn't integrate, doesn't talk, it's not interoperable, and you end up having to have somebody come in, either the vendor who sometimes wants to do it, sometimes not, or a third party come in and write a way for that system to talk to that system. Those expectations, I mean, at a baseline level, there are NFPA standards, 915, 951, that you can reference in an RFP just as a baseline standard for interoperability, setting expectations ahead of time because you've done your needs assessment and you've
Mm.
done your tech stack integration assessment up front. So you know what you've already got, you know what needs to plug into what to make it work. Those become specific requirements in the RFP because after the fact that the biggest hidden cost, the biggest thing I continually see is integrations to other systems and things that we didn't think about in the future. It is the biggest one as part of it, and it's also the biggest both delay in
Hmm.
getting any kind of new system deployed, and it is the single biggest hurdle when it comes to adoption. Because if you get there and you get to the floor and you're ready to do something and you're trying to deploy, and all of a sudden, well, man, it kind of needs to plug into this to make this easier, or all of a sudden, and then, I mean, firefighters, we are a very predictable bunch. If it does not work the first time or make my job easier and more effective, it is going out the window of the rig on the way to the next call.
We'll find a
Sometimes
workaround.
very literal fashion.
We will find a
So
workaround.
Hmm.
100% we'll find a way around it. And then you don't know it's broken, and then you don't know, and the vendor doesn't know, so they can't fix it. So man, you got to talk about understanding what you currently got today, what needs to get plugged into what, setting those expectations and the expectations for what you have today as a specification in the RFP, and the open door that your application must be interoperable in the future to other systems, including the systems that we may end up replacing. I mean, CAD and RMS are a perfectly good example. You know, you buy a CAD system, you buy an RMS system, and the average life expectancy of a CAD system is somewhere between 5 and 7 years. It's getting either significantly upgraded or outright replaced. And so if you aren't looking at those types of critical integration processes and things that you want to plug in, that's the one that's gonna sting you probably the most. And it trickles down into everything else, including day-to-day adoption and use.
I'm going back to college, Scott, and I'm going to learn how to build APIs, and I'm going to get rich.
You can do it. You can do it with AI now. That's the thing. The price of it should come down exponentially because AI can do them for you now.
It's
Well,
rough.
demanding some of those things, and like the project that Western Fire Chiefs is working on with Chief Muncie and some of our departments in California for the Public Safety Data Exchange, we'll start to do those things. Because you got to remember, from our perspective, it's expensive, it's difficult, it's always a pain. We got to think about doing this stuff for your vendors. It is almost as much of a pain. You know, a lot of them charge a lot for it. There's a reason. It's expensive. Previous place where I worked, we had integrations to literally dozens of systems, and each one of them was custom built. And our internal organization had to manage, maintain, keep those up. Every time vendor one changed something that plugged into vendor two that we were in the middle of, we had to stop and rewrite our own code to get that done. And so if you're not planning that stuff ahead of time, then you're asking for trouble.
So, all right, we've step four is procurement process. Let's real briefly, because we got about 15 minutes left. We could do more than an hour on this. Real briefly talk about selection process, and then we'll kind of jump into contracting process. So we've gone through the procurement process. We know we've found what we need. We've written RFPs, and we have 3 different companies. How do we go about evaluating 3 different companies?
Eddie, what do you think?
I mean, there's the obvious stuff, right? You know, it's going to be against the spec and all the things. I'll tell you the thing I've noticed in the last, I guess the nearest thing brought it out, made it apparent to me, was there's one big strategic difference you could, or conceptual difference you could look for, and that is innovation over acquisition. So how does the prospective vendor approach change? Do they acquire stuff, and then you know how that kind of goes. You acquire the thing, and then you make it work, right? You get it in there and make it work some kind of way, or do they innovate from scratch? That's one of the things I think that's it's been lucky for us is has that's we're definitely an innovation over acquisition type of place, and that has been worth its weight in gold because when the landscape changes, you have much more flexibility. You own all of the infrastructure. You can make that do what you need it to do. Where when you patch something together, it doesn't always work so good. So I think that would be aside from the obvious things, right? Your specs and all the things you would do. Look at that concept, and that tells you a lot about what the broader perspective might be, particularly when you're trying to address things that you can't see in the future yet.
Total
So
cost of ownership.
yeah. So that's kind of an intangible. Tangibles too, reach out to your neighbors. This is where you use that network. Call everybody in your network. Who's using this? Who's got, here's what we found that we needed. How is that working? And then trial versions. Of course, there'll be plenty of Zooms and with the company. Any other kind of suggestions on that actual selection process?
What do you see tactically?
Yeah, I'd say from a budget standpoint, because my asked a budget question is sometimes cheaper is not always better, and as long as you can explain that, that's okay. Because sometimes what I've seen is it'll be cheaper, but those APIs, right? You spend
Kick right in
more,
the pot.
but if you have it all built in and you can explain that to your procurement folks, you're gonna be okay. So don't just buy it just because it seems cheaper when you have those options on the table. Make sure you're comparing. Was it the oranges to oranges is the saying or whatever?
Yes. Yes.
Budgeting thing, I think, is an interesting question because
Hmm.
being an old budget chief, I don't know how like we worked on a 3-year hard plan, right? Like our budget was tight 3 years, and out to 5 years it was more of a guess, but the 3 years were tight. And how do I run a budget when technology changes faster than that cycle? Technology change every couple of months. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
going exponentially fast, and my budget process won't keep up with that. So one of the reasons, many reasons, I'm thankful I'm retired. But I
Yeah.
don't know how you guys do that.
Well,
Yeah, I would say so. We have like funds, right? You have an EMS fund, you may have a this fund, an apparatus fund, and that's where you just have to get with those revenue stakeholders and build a technology fund and help them to see that hey, this is an evolving thing, and it's not going away, and we're going to use this money appropriately, especially when you have those relationships built. That Will's going to do the right thing, Eddie's going to do the right thing,
Mhm.
so it makes it a little bit easier. That's kind of how we're working towards some special projects.
All right. So then contracting, actually writing the contract. Going back to what Rob was talking about, APIs. This is where we bring that up and talk about APIs, future APIs in that contracting phase. Is that correct?
yeah, contracting super, super critical. And again, it goes back, you start with the relationships. You need to know your procurement people. You need to know what your current standards are. There's a few things inside procurement though, to really think about when you're talking about writing the actual contract. Um, you've got your performance, as Eddie mentioned, rightfully so, against the RFP specification. There should be flexibility in that contract because tech does move so quickly.
Mhm.
It should allow you flexibility with that vendor to move. It should include things like future releases and identifying whether or not you get a future release as part of your contract. And what is a release? Is it just bug fixes and things like that? Or hey, you've got a new feature and something like that. Well, actually, we're going to charge you for that. Clarifying what is actually included is a really important thing because any gray area is cause for issues in the future. So making sure that you're clearly identifying and even identifying a schedule, a pricing schedule. I may need an API next year to plug into the new whiz bang thing that we know is going to do this. most vendors, if they're working with you and actually interested in a long-term relationship with you, are happy to put a price schedule in place with you that says, okay, if we have to integrate to a new solution, we have a hourly rate for our developers to develop a new API. We'll quote it on scene, and it'll be this much, and you can contract for those things in advance. So when you're looking at especially if you're interested, if you're a lot of municipalities like in Colorado, we've got laws that almost ban us from signing multi-year contracts with true multi-year contracts with vendors. But anytime you can really engage a multi-year contract with a vendor and have, appropriate outs for budgeting and that kind of stuff, but making sure that we have different ways to move through those processes and adjust, and we're able to adjust to what that vendor does. Because if we've done a good job selecting a vendor, they're going to innovate. They're going to create new things that we're going to want to take advantage of. And so you lay a lot of those things out ahead of time. Something else that can really help from a contractual perspective and actually writing the contract is ensuring that, again, data ownership is a critical piece of contracting. And I mean, real data ownership, like lining out in detail, I own this data. You don't get to charge me for it. Yes, it's your data, but guess what? At the end of the day, when you change to switch vendors, I'm going to charge you to get your own data back. No, it's literally my data. I can access it how I want. I can do what I want. Or at least know going eyes wide open that the vendor you select is going to charge you for that in the future. That's okay too, as long as you don't get surprised. And help your fellow agencies. If your state, your municipality allows for things like piggyback contracts, man, help your agencies and organizations do those kinds of things. Make sure those end up in your contract, because like in a lot of the state of California, for instance, as an example, you've already big agencies, other agencies have secured DGS contracts at a state level for these types of vendors and things like that, to pre-negotiated rates that are much lower than you're probably going to get on your own. And the reality is, if your agency's already bought, I can buy off your contract with a piggyback clause in the contract. I can use those things, and it simplifies and makes your procurement guy's life so much easier, makes your life so much easier, makes your vendor's life easier. So think about using things like piggyback clauses in your contracts as well. It makes it easier for everybody.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add in there, Scott, is just making sure that the cost escalator isn't, too high. Because a lot of times the vendors will put in there, hey, every year price goes up 3%, 5%, 7%. And I had a procurement officer catch it one time, and they say, hey, standard is about 3, 4. This particular vendor had like 7. And they're like, we're not agreeing to that. And then the last thing most municipalities want is a way to say, we're out. There's
Yep.
no, you have to stay in this contract. Our legal team here is quick to say no. We're going to have an out every single time. We're not signing a
100%.
concrete thing. So
Yeah, I think that's important, because if you start implementing it and you find out, man, we messed up on this one, you need to not fall victim to that escalation of commitment,
yeah,
or you dig your heels in the dirt and you shove it down somebody's throat anyways. You need to realize, be humble enough to realize, hey, we made a mistake and we need to get out of this and start all over.
that's
A
right.
couple other things I had under contracting, just to quickly throw out there: implementation timelines, integration responsibilities, and training requirements should probably also be in that contracting. Okay, so we've got the contract. We picked first due.
Hey,
What should we know about the implementation process and change management? We had a question here about change management. So this is a good time. So we have firefighters that, I'll never use technology. Meanwhile, they're FaceTiming their kids on their phone. But what do we need to know about implementation and the change management process?
Eddie.
Well, there will be homework. That's the first thing to understand. There's going to be some stuff you have to do, data you have to gather. I know our team's really good about, they have a very distinct plan and process for implementation. They know exactly how the timeline lays out, what they need, all that kind of thing. Uh, but I would say probably the most overlooked part is the training aspect of it. Uh, you know, we train on everything else, but somehow when we roll out tech, we want to put out a little YouTube video for about 3 minutes and expect you to have it.
Or
That's
an
not,
email?
yeah. Here we're doing this now. I think you really have to put some effort into the training. You can use your asynchronous stuff if you have to, but particularly at the company officer level, that seems to be the sweet spot. If you can get the company officers into the room and let them get hands on and let them bang on it and let them ask questions, you're going to have a lot smoother transition than if you just send an email out. So Don't overlook that investment in the implementation phase. It's definitely an important part of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes back to the early, if you've done your job early and assessed whether or not your organization's actually ready and able to go ahead and do this kind of thing. You've had those conversations, you've included it in the RFP process, and you have champions identified who are from the organization who are going to help you do these kinds of things and implement them and speak a different language than Eddie or me or even the chief is going to have when you're talking to a company officer, especially if it's something they're going to touch every day.
Yeah.
Because firefighters, if they don't buy into it, if they don't have the training requirements, and we should be training with tech we use every day, just like we do with everything else, because we're becoming reliant upon a lot of this stuff for situational awareness and things like that could impact tactical decisions we make on a fire ground. So I mean, we drill with everything else that helps us make a tactical decision on the fire ground, except the tech we use to inform the decisions that we're going to make on the fire ground. So why wouldn't we work that into the training specifications? Why wouldn't we work if you're going to go by tablet command, right? Why wouldn't you have a class in your training? Sit down with the training chief. Go, okay, we need to build a class. Sit down with tablet command. Sit down with your training chief. We're going to put a class, and all the classes this goes in. We're going to have refresher training and all the things. Because the other thing that will help you avoid long term is the adoption problem and the identification of champions as people promote every couple of years and move in. You'll have more and more people who are already using the tool, who are happy with it, who will step into that role and be educated and ready to move forward.
I think too, one of the best pieces of advice I heard when starting a major change or implementing a major change was getting everybody in the room and asking the question, okay, it's 6 months from now and this failed completely. Where did it fail? And I think that's where you're going to find your weak points, because a lot of people can already point to the weak points before you even implement it.
Yeah, he said that about training, and it just spurred me that we have software here, and we're gonna fire up some more training, because that's the number one thing, man, is and that just goes back to that budget chief mentality, Eddie, is sometimes as us budget chiefs, we're trying to watch every single penny. And man, it's always a friendly reminder that sometimes it's better to go ahead and spend it up front than it is to try to play catch up, because you saved a nickel. It's going to cost you 3 dimes later on. So, just do your homework and spend accordingly.
Man, this hour flew by. Yeah. This hour flew by. We didn't get to. We have several questions we didn't get to. We could do probably a full show on each one of these processes to go through it, but hopefully there was some good information here. If you're looking for somebody to help your department, Rob, that's what he's doing now. He's got his own consulting company. You want to give yourself a shout out there, Rob?
Yeah, so I own Acceleration Strategies. We do everything from initial tech readiness assessments, tech stack assessments, helping you review those things, helping write RFP specs, helping your procurement people do that kind of stuff, making sure you've identified that stuff. We write technology strategic plans to help you align all these things ahead of time. So we can help you with all those different types of aspects of your agency.
Cool. And then, of course, Eddie's always a great resource. Worked for two companies I know of now, major technology companies, a retired assistant fire chief, man, training chief of the year. He's at FDIC every year. Eddie's the man. He's the GOAT.
He really is, man. He really is.
Yeah.
So. He's been around a long time. That's
all. Any last words of advice before we sign off for the day?
Hope to see you all at FDIC.
Yes.
Next one coming up.
Definitely be at FDIC.
That's right.
We got the smart firefighting hootenanny going on again. So
yeah,
all of you, it's not even optional attendance for all of you. It's required.
Yeah. Sold.
We'll probably have to do a little bit different tech talk at FDIC, because that's the Next Gen Fire Summit that we're going to be attending on Tuesday. So we might do a live show from FDIC there.
Hey,
I'll be there.
Half camera will travel.
100%.
Yep. I mean, like we said, I think there was about 5 other questions I'm looking here in the chat that we didn't get to. Some of them nerding out on APIs and SDKs and MCPs and OAuth. That is something of interest to me. But yeah, tech for the sake of tech. Again, for everyone to ask questions, it always is wonderful to see it. I think at one point we peaked at about 70 people across the different platforms today. So great to see the Tech Talk Tuesday just continue to evolve and grow. Eddie B and Robbie E, thank you so much. I think you guys are like the new like tag team here that we
Bro.
love calling on. But just continue to look out for Tech Talk Tuesday, first and third Tuesday of every month. Also, if you're interested in the Tech Council, we've continued to evolve some of the groups. We've added a community risk reduction sub-council committee. We also are continuing to explore a committee focused on NARIS interoperability. And just got like a lot of really good sub-council energy going on. We have good relationships going on with the media groups in the fire service that are actively looking for Tech Council members to be publishing and working with us to continue to speak out loud about some of these ideas and challenges and work together as a Tech Council to push messaging to industry, to push messaging to other fire leaders to just kind of keep bouncing the ball. So if you're interested in trying to connect with other fire service individuals that are kind of pushing the ball and forward thinking early adopters, early majority, join the Tech Council. Scott, Will, Corey, and myself lead it. And yeah, that's all I got from me. And just, thank you guys. Scott, Will, any final comments from you guys?
Nah, see y'all soon, Scott.
Yeah, great show. Thank you guys. Thank you.